Hi, this is JKC, and I'm talking a little bit today about astral projection. And this is something that I've been fascinated with for about the last year. In a way, kind of all my life, but I just want to talk a little bit about how I became involved with it, and a little bit about me in terms of this phenomenon. First off, you have to bear in mind that I am naturally a very skeptical person. I have been having strange dreams all my life where I have literally stepped out of my body, but all this time I had believed this were simply dreams. However, I do take dreams a little bit more seriously than most people do, but it wasn't until recently, just this past year, that I realized these things were a little bit more than just plain dreams. In this video, part one, I'm just going to talk about how I suddenly realized that what I was doing. Back in about 2005, I was living up north of where I live now, up in the mountains, and I was sitting in the living room reading my book. It was about afternoon, about maybe 3 p.m., and I was reading my book and just kicked back in an easy chair, and it was broad daylight, the afternoon sun coming in the windows. And as I was reading, I suddenly noticed that the light in the room changed, and it became like a golden light color. Before it was kind of whitish like ordinary daylight, but this was like a really deep gold color. And when I noticed it had changed, I looked around the room, and I noticed over by our fireplace, which was maybe about 10 feet away from me, that there was a being standing there. And I naturally figured at the time, okay, I've fallen asleep and this is a nightmare. And then I realized, okay, I'm telling myself that I'm dreaming while I'm in a dream. So I paid attention, and I noticed that this being, which was kind of tall, thin, had a white face, but had no discernible features, just a pair of dark eyes, and he was wearing like a very dark, tight-fitting suit. He reached out toward me, and as he did so, his hand seemed to stretch infinitely long and reach across 10 feet and touch me on my forehead. And as he did so, I felt myself trying to physically pull back from him, and all of a sudden I realized I couldn't move, that I was paralyzed. And for a long time, when I thought back on this experience, I thought it was an alien abduction, but it really wasn't. As I describe it further, I'll explain to you why it wasn't. Anyway, as the being reached out and touched me on the forehead, all of a sudden I felt my insides, like my spirit or my soul, all of a sudden become unmoored from my body and begin to leave my body, exiting through the top of my head. It was like this thing was pulling my soul out of my body like a tissue out of a Kleenex box. The sensation was very strange. It was like that. I could feel myself coming loose from my body and coming out this way. And as I got about halfway out of my body, I looked down, and I could literally see the top of my head. And this thing still had a hold of me, and I panicked. I thought, okay, this is the angel of death, and it's here to take me out of my body, and I'm actually looking down at my body, and I'm dying right now. That's what I thought when I saw this. In an instant, I freaking panicked. The being never said anything to me. It just had a hold of me, and it was lifting me out. But I panicked, and I tried to force myself back down into my body, but I felt that all of a sudden I was on a conveyor belt, and I couldn't drop myself back in my body. So I willed my body below to move, just move, do something. And all of a sudden I felt myself slide back down into my body, and this thing that what this being, whatever had a hold of me, just all of a sudden let me go. Like it sensed me panicking, and it just let me go. And I slipped back in my body, and I felt my spirit lock back into place. And then that's when I woke up. At this point, I'd saw the book on my lap tumble off my lap onto the floor. And that's when I realized I was back in my body and I was ambulatory. I blinked a couple times, and then all of a sudden the light in the room was back to normal. It was regular daylight again. And I freaked out and got up and ran screaming to find my husband. That's how bad. I thought it was just a really bad dream or some sort of weird alien experience for the longest time. But I didn't understand, what exactly it meant. So that kind of went in my UFO files for a while, which is unfinished objects of thought. And I just didn't know how to classify that. I had had sensations of standing up and getting out of my body before in dreams, but never something this hyper-realistic. I mean, it was like I was there. It was so real. The only difference between, I guess, the waking world and this twilight trance I had somehow fallen into while I was reading was that the light had changed in the room, but I could see all the furniture. I could hear my husband watching TV in the other room. I could hear my kids moving around the house and everything, but it was like I was asleep in the chair. But I remember when I looked down at my body as I was floating above it while this thing was trying to pull me out, then my eyes were wide open, and I remember seeing my book tumble off my lap onto the floor, which is where it was when I came completely out of the trance. So anyway, that experience stayed in my mind for a long time. And years later, that's 2010, which is a little over a year and a half ago when it happened, maybe about October, I had a strange dream where I had fallen asleep on the couch again. This time again I was reading a book. And I felt myself here, I felt like I could not move again. It was another sleep paralysis. And again, when I was reading up on the alien stuff, I thought, oh, okay, well then, again, so maybe I'm being taken or something like that. I just, instead of fighting it this time, because the weird buzzing noise and things that happens to you when you astral project, I didn't realize that's what it was at the time, but it was such a loud vibrating sound, it just kind of just zoomed in and out, and it was so loud it was like a chainsaw next to my ear. And I told myself, okay, I'm not going to fight it this time. I'm just going to sit back and let's see what happens. And so I did. As much as the sound frightened me, I just relaxed further, and all of a sudden I felt myself roll right out of my body. And I stood up, and I looked down at the couch where I was laying, and I saw myself laying there. I saw my own face and my clothes, and the only difference in the room was that number one, I saw myself as I really look. I thought, wow, I've gained weight and I look a lot older than I thought I did. And I noticed that my clothes, which I'd had on a pair of jeans and a dark brown shirt at the time, and I nodded off as a nap on the couch, the jeans were like a strange green color and the shirt was almost purple. There was something different about the colors, and I didn't see the silver cord that they keep talking about, but I knew, even as this was happening, I was looking down, that I was astrally projecting. I was having an out-of-body experience. And this shocked me, because it made me all of a sudden realize about all those dreams I had where I'd done the exact same thing, only I had experienced the vibration noise, the sleep paralysis, and all of a sudden I was off to dreamland, and I was walking around or flying or doing all kind of crazy things, but they felt so hyper-realistic. I've been having dreams like this all my life. They're very realistic. I can use all five senses in these dreams, and it's like your life, but in super HD. And it's more real than real. It's more real than a typical 3D life that we live in. It's sort of hard to explain unless it's happened to you, unless you've really seen this. But it dawned on me then, after I woke up from this experience, which all I did, in that particular experience was step out of my body, look down and see myself, and then realize, wow, I just astral projected, and I said this to myself in this quote-unquote dream. And that's when I knew that this is something that I've been doing all my life, even though I had no idea I was doing it. And so anyway, I stood up, looked down on myself, and that's when my life changed. I knew then that astral projection was real, and I'm a very logical, grounded person, and I do have an imagination, just like anybody else, but I've always tried to look at the, the reality of the situation. Okay, did I hallucinate this? But no, I mean, if it's a hallucination, then how am I having the similar symptoms to millions of other people who this has happened to? Why are we having the same exact symptoms? And I'm talking about the sleep paralysis and the feeling that you're sliding out of your body like you're on a rail. And then when you realize you're outside of your body, you can look back and see yourself. And then you can go from there to anywhere you want. All you have to do is just walk through the door or just think yourself somewhere else, and it's so real. It's very hyper real, and that's when I knew that there was another place, and it's called what I refer to as the in-between. There people have other names for it, but it is the astral realm. Anyway, in the second part of this video, I'm going to talk about how I actually got myself to do this on command rather than just giving into, letting it happen to me. So anyway, I'll talk about that in part 2. Thank you. Bye-bye.